smart job from Square-Enix. So, but we've got another topic that we want to discuss, and it's because it keeps popping up all over the place. This is something that I keep seeing since the introduction of the feast, and the narrative around it is confusing. It is murky at best, and so
it seems to have showed up so quickly too.
And it seems
like it sped out of nowhere.
It's been around for a while, but at the same time, it seems to rear its head much more often these days. So we want to talk about speed hacking in PvP. Now, threads on forums keep popping up about this. People keep talking about it, and there seems to be kind of two conclusions that people are reaching, and that is that it is happening.
Epidemic.
It is an epidemic. It's happening everywhere. It's out of control. It's happening on a daily basis, and it's killing queues for PvP. That seems to be the one school of thought. And the other school of thought seems to say, well, these are losers who are projecting on people who are skilled at PvP and trying to find a scapegoat or a reason for their success outside of their skill.
It's not as rampant as what the other school of thought would leave you to believe.
That's right. That's right. So, I want to kind of put it out there, how localized or widespread is this problem? Is it even a real problem, or is this just a perceived problem that we have in the community?
I actually have two instances of something related to this that I want to share. The first thing is that this reminds me a lot of how guild sellers were treated back in the 11 days, right? Remember that if someone had no link Pearl on, if they were anonymous and they were in like crappy low-level gear...
Well, clearly that's a guild seller.
That's a guild seller.
They fit the profile.
That's right.
Yeah, that's how you find a guild seller.
And there was one day where I was out camping in NM, had my link shell off so nobody would interrupt me. I was anonymous. I was in shitty low-level gear.
No.
I looked like a guild seller.
You were a guild seller.
Someone running by me said something like that to me, and I'm like, how about that? Mm-hmm. Right? And then the other time was...
I never thought it could happen to me.
First they came for the guild sellers, and I said nothing.
Was in the Overwatch beta. I was playing with a friend of mine, and he got like a 4-time kill using McCree, and someone from the opposite team, because you have like a team chat, then you have like a group chat where everybody can see it.
Yeah.
It pops up in there, really hacking already, because he did something really, really good, got a great play.
Yeah.
So obviously, it must be hacking.
Right.
So yeah, you're right. How much of this could just be that these people are losing so terribly that they just assume, no, there's no way someone can be this good. They have to be hacking it.
But in this game, when it's like 4 versus 4 and you see one person like speeding around way faster than everyone else, like it's obvious, isn't it?
Is it?
Well, can't you contribute that to like just really shitty lag sometimes?
Sometimes.
That seems to be one narrative out there, that server latency and connection to the server is a big part of that. And, it sort of leads to the question, well, can character behavior always be indicative of whether or not somebody is playing the game cleanly or not? Because that's usually the first thing that we look for, is we look for player behavior. And because these things happen over a net, and because the there's netcode involved, there are some people out there who say that this is only a symptom of poor netcode and a symptom of having a high latency to the server, and that's what's causing these strange character anomalies. I don't know that I believe that, but that is what is claimed.
I was going to say, because if you think about it like from a personal experience, not even in PvP matches, right, but talking about the lag thing, where I can tell you if I'm playing for the majority of the day, at least once, maybe twice, that'll happen. We'll be fighting the frog at the beginning of Anti-Tower, and everything kind of stops for a minute, and the next thing people are running everywhere, right?
Yeah, sure.
It's
called rubber banding. It happens.
Yeah, so is that something, like, obviously, in a dungeon, no one's moving all of a sudden, and now everyone's just zipping around. You know what that is. But when you're put into an environment like a 4v4 PvP, you know what? That very well could look like suddenly someone's just zipping around really quickly, and it could very easily be mistaken for speed hacking. Now, this isn't to say that this doesn't happen.
No,
right?
and that's the thing, is that I don't think that there's anyone out there who is denying speed hacking. Speed hacking is a thing. The tools clearly exist. They are out there. They are available for people to find.
And it's been prevalent in every kind of PvP. I mean, I remember putting up with it
a lot of games. I mean, in general.
I remember putting up with it specifically in World of Warcraft.
You're right.
So
right.
it's out there.
It absolutely is out there, and I don't think that especially anyone in this room, no one is denying that it exists. Speed hacking absolutely exists, and it's a thing. But the thing is that the claims, whether it be from Reddit or the official forums or from BlueGuard or wherever, that these threads throw out there that it is a epidemic. It's out of control, daily basis, killing queues. Those are direct quotes from some of these threads and some of these discussions, and I feel like that is completely hyperbolic. That I don't think that the problem is as widespread as reaching levels of out of control or ruining every queue or ruining queues in general. I mean, here's the thing. I can't speak to this on a first-hand basis. I don't do PvP. I don't do 4v4 Feast. I've never really been that into PvP. I'm into it as an idea. I like that Square-Enix supports the game, and I think that I could probably be more into it if I was given a reason, but because I'm not given a reason, I'm not as into it as someone maybe like, Joe. And so, I don't speak from experience. This is not a problem that I'm experiencing on a regular basis, but then again, I'm not queuing for PvP. Now, what's interesting about this discussion is that people are saying that this has been a longer problem than just the Wolves Den, and that the Wolves Den has really only exacerbated the problem or made the problem really prevalent because it's 4v4 matches instead of alliance versus alliance. That this behavior is way easier to hide in big matches like frontlines matches, and that these players have been in fact perpetrating this for a longer time than we would even think. And I mean, there may be something to that. I think that there is some truth to that. You can hide player behavior a little bit more slyly in a large frontlines match, but a lot more people seem to be jumping onto this bandwagon now with the Wolves Den and 4v4 being out, and I'm trying to figure out, is it just because people are noticing more bizarre character behavior because the matches are smaller, or is it because this is indeed happening more often? I don't know.
That's a good question, because two instances now that I'm thinking of. First, you're right, mentioning the big PvP things. Maybe it is a little bit harder back during like Frontlines or Seal Rock to have noticed this, because I did a lot of PvP back then. Obviously not seriously. No, you know what? I think because I was more... Stop. Mute him, please.
Where are you going with this? I know exactly where you're
muted.
I was more of an observer in Seal Rock than anything else. No, I'm serious. Think about it, okay?
You have to be looking at the screen.
Think about it. I just walked around watching people, right? So if there were people speed hacking, you'd think that I, of all people, would probably have my eye on it before, right? I can't say that I ever really saw anything where I even thought to myself, maybe they're speed hacking, maybe they're not, I don't know, right?
I think it's hard to tell when sprint is something in this game. So if you see someone running really fast, you're like, oh, they must have just hit sprint.
Well,
True.
that was dumb.
Now,
Okay,
the other thing is...
Here's the problem with your theory that you were an observer.
That's not a theory.
Is that you weren't looking at that screen.
Yeah,
the Final Fantasy 14 screen.
There were times I was, because I had to keep turning around.
There were times.
The other thing is, didn't people accuse hunts in the beginning? People would get to the hunts in early pull, they would accuse them of speed hacking, right?
Basically, anyone who didn't get attribution for a hunt pull or didn't get get there in time. Yeah, it was like this. It was like this club that sanctimonious assholes would wield against people, where they would go, "Oh, I didn't get to the pull.
Yep.
You guys are a bunch of guild workers," and it's like, shut up, you fucking moron.
Well, that might have been
guild
true,
work
but I don't think
specifically.
it was
That's what I'm asking, because if people are saying that was speed hacking back in that day,
that's not speed hacking. There were people who claimed that people sped hack to get to the mobs faster than other people, and that was different. But the people who would harp on guild work or people using the guild work software, that is completely different because
Right,
that is
yes.
software like we had accurately said on the show where we talked about guild work. That's software that is proliferated amongst the community where it's kind of a gray area whether that is quote unquote legal to use or not. And so speed hacking, that's a definite no. You're
Yes.
you're
So
absolutely jeopardizing your account
Yes.
if you're engaging in that.
So my perspective on that was, because remember when hunts first came out, I couldn't do them at all because my computer was such shit that I never made it there in time. Right?
Yeah, that's the thing too, is that like people aren't necessarily speed hacking, but like long loading times depending on your computer, it makes all the difference.
Yes,
That's
and
true.
once I got the Technonomicron, now I get to them like no problem.
Right.
So anyone who would claim that speed hacking was prevalent in hunts, I think that's total bullshit.
Well, yeah, I totally agree, but I think that this mirrors the situation in the same way, where that now anyone who loses or comes across somebody that has a high win-loss ratio,
And that's what it comes down to. though.
they just write them off. Oh, that fucking speed hacker.
Right,
And I think
because
like first of all, there's a lot of witch hunts going around, which I've been kind of paying attention to the chat. I'm appreciative that the chat has refrained from like trying to call out anyone. Look, we're all adults here, okay? We can talk about this as an abstract issue. We don't need to attempt to call out anyone because this is simply not a thing that you can call out. Going back to our discussion about guild work, you can't discern simply from character behavior whether or not someone is definitively speed hacking. It may give you clues, but it's not a definitive answer because there are too many variables in between your connection and their connection that could affect that.
And I think that it's very suspect that out of all of these instances where you could use speed hacking, now it seems to become prevalent once we have some type of ranking system. Because
I've noticed that too.
Did win-loss ratio matter in Seal Rock at all?
No, it
not
didn't.
really.
It
And if you
didn't.
lost, what did you contribute it to?
But you know what?
RNG.
But you know what they're going to say? It's not that. It's the 4v4 matchups and being able to discern the player character behavior easier. It's more on display. It's again, I think that there is some wisdom to the fact that you can hide that behavior easier in front lines, because a lot of what this relies on, at least to me, or in terms of official responses from Square-Enix, is they say just keep reporting these people, keep reporting them, and let Square-Enix sort them out. And
Thought I'd donate a bit in addition to becoming a new Patreon as just a small
nice
thanks
Patreon.
for all the entertainment the LBR team provides less than 3.
thank you, Duke Block, and thank you for calling in to the show. It's nice to hear from you. But that. To me, like that's sort of the crux of the argument right there. Is now that we have this ranking system, and now that we can kind of go see and look at the data and be able to discern player character behavior, there's a lot more witch hunting that's happening.
Now,
and
on
again, I'd
Square-Enix's
like to thank, because we're having an adult conversation that abstracts the idea. I know that children can't have that discussion. They need to blame somebody, assign blame, and find a scapegoat right away. It's not what we're doing. We're talking about this in the abstract. We're not trying to pin down one player's behavior and go, oh, see, this is an example.
Or this is how you spot it.
And really, when people do that and use anecdotal examples and use people as their anecdotal examples, I think that that's damaging to the overall discussion, because that leads to the whole witch hunting thing, and that doesn't do any good for anyone. It really doesn't. What needs to happen is that Square Enix needs to definitively come out and say something about it.
That's what I was going to say. They haven't really said or
They've been
done
very
any season to the next. There wouldn't be a whole lot of changes made. Like if Hunter, for example, was OP at the start, they were OP through salvage dupe thing.
Yes.
They kept quiet about that for a long time, a few months.
They did.
And then cracked down on everyone.
Well, and I think what they said that they were doing is they were collecting data so that they could do a big sweep. But
here's the other thing. The
Is really
SE
Square Enix, is that the same company as back then?
That's what I was going to say. The SE from the 11 days and the SE we have now are very, very different. And not only that, but even when it's come to PvP, the amount of changes that they have been willing to make week to week to week compared to a lot of other MMOs, it's ridiculous.
There's a lot of tweaking going on.
And when I played World of Warcraft, from one season to the next, there wouldn't be a whole lot of changes made. Like if Hunter, for example, was OP at the start, they were OP through the entire season. You would see entire jobs, be ran exclusively by some people, and some would be completely forgotten.
Right.
The fact that Square Enix has been so up to date and so on point with PvP and the adjustments that they've been making and the feedback that they've been getting from people, I feel like if this was as much of an epidemic as some people would lead you to believe, I feel like we may have heard something in some way from SE.
You would think, because I mean the problem does keep coming up. It's not going away. That's the thing, is that I almost wanted to kind of ignore the problem for a while, but you almost can't. You can't ignore the problem because it just keeps popping up and people keep saying it. And the thing is that they use purely anecdotal evidence, or there are some compelling videos that exist out there of quote unquote speed hackers that they're ping-ponging around the map like a goddamn pinball, and that is pretty compelling. That makes you go, well, that does look like speed hacking. The fact of the matter is I don't really know what's going on there. And when
I was back camping Leaping Lizzie, to that person I looked like a gill seller.
Right. Yeah, a lot of it is about perception, and it's not to defend those that are speed hacking either. But I mean, like, looks, the community is not the arbiter of deciding whether people are hacking or not. You can throw all of the anecdotal evidence, all of the Twitch archives, all of the YouTube videos, all of the fucking archive footage that you have. You can throw all of that you want at the problem, and at the end of the day, there are specific people who the community thinks should be banned and are not being banned. And at the end of the day, because Square Enix isn't being transparent about it, you go, well, we have to leave it to Square Enix to sort through all this. But I think it would be nice to know, okay, how are you doing it? You know what I mean? Like, how are you going about addressing this issue? Because it seems way bigger than it is. And if that's the perception, then the company who runs the game needs to address it.
Especially considering that this is the first season of PvP, I feel like this is going to set a major precedent going forward. There's a lot of people right now that if they feel like they're losing out because there's a hack out there that's running rampant, it's going to keep them from attempting the next seasons.
Well, and that's where you get accusations like it's ruining PvP queues, which I think that's an unfair accusation, because queues all around the game are down. Now, look, we've not had any new content for 5 weeks now. I mean, it's been a long time. I know that I'm barely logging in. You know what I mean? Like, I'm spending way more time with Dark Souls than I am with FF14, and I wish that wasn't the case. I wish there was more to do. I wish that weapon grind was a little bit more meaty and hefty, so I could have sunk my teeth into that. But it was done in 2.5 weeks, and now we're sitting around with our thumb up our butts. It's kind of boring right now. And so,
now you're not going to attribute any of the PvP queue to that?
That's what I'm getting at, is that all of the queues around across the board are shitty. It's not just your PvP queues, bro.
Right, and I mean, this is a problem that pops up anytime you introduce a real competitive structure into something like PvP. Any game that has a ladder or something like that, there's always suspicions of foul play, because no one wants to admit that maybe they just suck.
That's the other thing, is that, it's such an easy thing to hide behind. Oh, you fucking hacker.
Yeah, why can't we all just be like a Scully and admit that we suck?
Yeah, exactly.
Or admit that somebody's really good. You know what I mean? Like, everyone gets sick of, no-scopers and Call of Duty or fucking
360 no-scoper. Come on.
What is it? Noob tubers. Like, people get openly annoyed at that, but I mean, like, there is skill involved in that, and you can hate all you want, but the KDR speaks to itself, and their win-loss ratio speaks to itself too.
Yeah, I got news for you. Like, if you look around in like PvP, if it's as rampant as you make it out to be, there are not that many people who care enough or have the expertise to make it happen.
Or would risk their account.
Right,
or
exactly.
would risk their account. This is not like Guild Work, where it's going to, Square Enix is going to kind of turn a blind eye to it and allow it to continue to be a usable tool.
They will crack down on this eventually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no way that they don't. There is no way that they don't. I mean, Square Enix is bound to respond to this. They have to.
Which then brings up the question, if
and not necessarily through like they need to address it in a message, but either through action or through addressing it in a statement.
Which then brings up the question, I mean, like we've said, guild work has sort of operated in this weird gray area, but if they then start taking a stance one way or the other, do they have to follow through with it?
That's a great question, because that does seem like it would extend to things like guild work. And you know what would fix this? You know what would fix this?
Backdoor API?
A fucking API. God damn it, Square Enix. Seriously.
Everything goes back to API. Everything.
It really does. But yeah, I mean, you can trot out all of the evidence that you want where, it's a YouTube video of a character bouncing around, or you want to look at somebody's win-loss statistics on the leaderboard. It's all anecdotal evidence. It's nothing but anecdotal evidence. And
Now, for the children in our audience, can you explain exactly what anecdotal evidence means? Because I'm not sure if they're quite grasping the concept.
Yeah, it's just you're telling a story, basically. You're telling a story that happened to you, so it's an anecdote. And that's the only evidence that you can provide. I said it, therefore that makes it true. It happened to me, I viewed it, therefore it makes you true. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it.
That is the shit that, to me, like that doesn't fly. That dog doesn't hunt. That dog don't hunt. That's a fantastic, a great sketch from Melky Thera, who sketched.
That was Malkyria.
Oh, Malkyria. Sorry. Sketched a Nero and the Little Rocker. That's pretty awesome.
I love the face.
The smile,
yeah.
The smile is pretty hilarious, I gotta say.
That's great.
Yeah,
you should link that in chat there,
Kooky,
Mal.
yeah,
or Kooky, one of you.
Both of you, yeah.
Everybody link it.
Everyone link it.
213 relinks immediately.
Anyway, if you want to talk about this, we'd be interested to hear from you. Limit Break Radio on Skype, 810-515-8715, limitbreakradio.com/Discord. With so many people talking about it and claiming that it's a problem, I'm kind of surprised that there aren't more people who are trying to call in on this. I figured that this would be a real hot topic because a lot of people have things to say about it.
Well, it's kind of like a few weeks ago we talked about the whole crafter sig thing, right? Like there was this whole big dark underworld revolving around that, and there was all these people being affected by it, but it was kind of being quelled or squashed,
Yeah.
Like they were talking about it, but no one was really hearing them.
Right.
So could this be another case of that?
I don't know. I'm talking about it on the official forum seems to be a very dicey proposal because a lot of forum bans have been handed out for it under the guise of no witch hunting. Same thing with Reddit. Same thing with I don't know about BG.
Let's assume it is a real problem. It is a real epidemic, right? As players, the only evidence you can get is what you see.
Right.
But if that is anecdotal and if that is witch hunting, then how are you supposed to bring it to anyone's attention?
Well, and what they say is that you got to keep using the official reporting system. You've got to keep reporting it to Square Enix,
and if someone's
Square Enix
name pops up enough, then
Square Enix has to be the arbiter, the arbiter of that. And so if we use logic and we go by that logic and say, okay, well, if Square Enix is, if we can only rely on Square Enix to address this problem, right, then we have to look at what they've already done or what they're already doing, and that has been definitively a lack of bans. There hasn't been too many bans handed out because of this problem, or at least not many that we know of.
And what is terrifying about that is if you are using a speed hack, okay, we're going to go into our little theoretical world. If I'm a person using a speed hack, there's no evidence of it in chat logs. If I'm playing it safe and I'm not telling anybody that I'm using it,
right,
there's no evidence of it in chat logs, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if we go back to my friend who's been being harassed for, 3-4 months,
there's evidence.
There is actual physical evidence, and it still took 4 months for anything to supposedly have been done. That is ridiculous. So how long do you have to wait for a speed hacker to be found out?
I think that's a great question. I mean,
it's a terrifying thought.
Again, this comes back to transparency, and I think it really would behoove Square Enix to talk about it a little bit. Unless, like you had said before, unless they're collecting data on it to come through
but
and do.
You know what? Even if they were to say, we realize in the community that the idea of speed hacking is, amongst your worries and thoughts, we're looking into it. I think that would assuage a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot more than being silent about it.
Well, but there's also this other issue of, we did identify that this attitude comes about simply from people losing and just having that perception, this person's clearly speed hacking because they beat me so soundly.
Yeah.
Right? So
I played footsie with you. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I know. Yeah. But that being the case, like with that being the case, how many GMs are just flooded with bullshit speed hacking claims? You know what I mean? Like, if they've got to weed through all of this shit, then maybe it's not unjustifiable to take, 4 or 5 months to move on it.
Ramo619 says, I have played over 400 matches of Feast and only seen one speed hacker.
Again, but that's...
Right, not necessarily, but what he believes to be a speed hacker.
But that's only anecdotal evidence. You have played over 400, and you have only encountered what you believe to be one speed hacker.
But you would think if it was such an epidemic, I mean, some people are probably saying, they're everywhere. I see them every single match. How come this person's only seen 1 in 400? Are they not looking hard enough?
Yeah,
Are the speed hackers at the higher tiers of ranks, and you're at poop tier?
Who knows?
Are they ignoring it if it's on their team, the person speed hacking?
I mean, this is the problem with anecdotal evidence, because you get somebody who comes in and is like, well, I saw it happen, and it happened in front of me, so clearly it's a problem, and it happens all the time. And you're like, okay, well, how do you prove that? Like, how exactly do you prove it? And then when you look at the video evidence, the video proof of it...
And that's all you have is video proof.
It really is.
Shinjima saying, I play with Platinums. I've never seen anyone look like a cheater.
Again, this is all anecdotal, and this is,
you can
and
see
it's really
between them too how inconsistent the stories end up being.
And the reason that I keep bringing this up is that Square-Enix has to go off largely anecdotal evidence as well. They actually run the system that can do the back end checks. They can verify whether or not it's happening. So if a name keeps popping up and people keep going, well, clearly this guy's a speed hacker, clearly he needs to be banned, and he's not, then that, I think if you use some reverse logic there, if the name keeps coming up, Square Enix probably looked into it, and if they looked into it, what, you think that they're protecting someone? Like, why would they protect a hacker? Why would they protect a speed hacker at that point? It doesn't make any fucking sense. It makes sense for Square Enix to protect their code and protect their game and protect their property.
Well, you mentioned like how much flooding of complaints they must get on this. They probably don't even look into it until a certain name has appeared 10, 15 times.
Yeah.
Like, because if they did it on every single case, there's no way they have the resources for that.
No, that's exactly it.
Plus, you'd end up getting people who were just lagging, caught in the crossfire.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a very complex issue. Again, it's something that keeps popping up again and again and again, and I don't know where I've settled on this. Again, I know that it's a problem. I know that it exists. I'm not trying to deny that it's a problem, but at the same time, I really do think that a lot of the reaction out there is so overblown and is not. It's just. All it is just building up your wall of defense to defend your ego.
Well, at the risk of angering Reddit, because I don't PvP, I'm going to say that my personal take on this, I'm going to side with the fact that there obviously is speed hackers out there. I'm not arguing that, but I don't think it's as quite an epidemic as
I don't think it's an epidemic at all.
Remember, we do not PvP, so these are just the opinions that we're sharing that can't be...
I would guess it probably isn't as well, but I mean, obviously it does exist. It's something that's existed on every online game, on every system since the beginning of online play.
You're not wrong.
I'm sure it does exist to some extent, but I'm sure it's also being blown way out of proportion.
Absolutely.